We are still 3.5 weeks away from the start of the new Premier League season, but already Liverpool FC, the champions, are the big spenders in the window. Very much uncharacteristically so as well. Today, we're going to debate the signing so far. We're going to investigate where has this money come from? Have they found oil under Anfield, or did they invest it in cryptocurrency? We're going to get into all of that today. And we're also going to ask the real question. Can this investment now mean that Liverpool could potentially dominate the Premier League for the next years to come? Let's kick things off with, I guess, the facts and the figures. Reese, talk us through where this money's come from. We know Liverpool have not spent money much. They only spent, what, 12 million last summer. So where is this money coming from and why now?
Yeah, so as we know, it's the most expensive window in Liverpool's history. And that's an important thing because to maintain success, you have to keep improving your side. You can't just decide to not spend any money and expect to push on long term. Now, I know that at the time of recording, they've reached the agreement with Ekitike at Frankfurt. Um, but before that, I'm not going to say anything until he's holding up the shirt, so to speak. Liverpool spent approximately £215 million on five players, the most notable being obviously Frimpong from Leverkusen, Kirkes from Bournemouth, Mamadou Shafli from Valencia, which even though was agreed last year, he had joined officially this year. And of course, Florian Wirtz, the big money signing of £100 million. There's of course a couple of other smaller transfers that have happened during this as well. But once Ekitike is official, this will be in a club spending close to around £300 million, which is insane amounts for Liverpool. Bearing in mind they only spent, I think it was around 12.5 million the season before in 20. So how can they spend it is what you're asking. And not to bore people with the details, but there is a lot going in Liverpool's favour when it comes to PSR. According to the PSR rules, clubs are permitted to only obviously record 105 million pound in losses over a 3-year period. While Liverpool spent plenty, they're projected to make over 700 million in turnover for the 24-25 season. So as you can see, they're in no real danger of breaking these PSR rules at this moment in time. Same with the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal and City. Liverpool obviously posted that positive margin of 48 million pound the previous financial year. However, they've generated player sales as well. So they've spent over 200 million pounds, but they've also generated quite a healthy number in sales, including Kwanzaa and Kelly are both leaving, and they also managed to get a fee for Trent, which is an extra bonus as well. And there's also the possibility that Nunes and Diaz might also be sold, and they're not going to go for a couple of quid. So that will also help close that net spend and also help raise a little bit of money there. But as I mentioned, they only spent 12.5 million the season before. And of course, but they also made 62.5 million in player sales. So you can sit and do the maths there, but there's a lot of wiggle room they've got. But there's also a lot of other things in Liverpool's favour. Their commercial revenue is booming, £300 million due to sponsorships, retail growth. If you've been to Anfield, the new stand has been, a godsend for them, and there's people outside the ground all the time. It just goes to show the magnitude of the club there. They're also in Europe again, Champions League. They'll get the money there, and they also get a bigger share as well in Premier League money, again, Champions League money, and they also win a few whack as well for winning the actual league itself. They've been on it. Their marketing's been outstanding. Their branding's been outstanding. The club is continuing to grow. They've also got this Adidas deal as well. Let's not forget that's going to be their new kit supplier from this season for a few years. It's a real positive time for them, and it's quite simple. That's how they've done it. Shrewd transfers. And bearing in mind, a lot of these players, if they do go well, will kind of have a resale value to them. They're buying for a long term here because they had to freshen this squad up. It's a long term investment. So hats off to them because, the Fenway Sports Group have been fantastic.
Yeah, Jamie, what do you make of these moves? Because look, we've said it all ourselves, and I think that the response from Liverpool fans has been, "Well, we didn't spend anything last summer, so we're allowed to spend this." I think the real question is why, though. Like, why? What you suddenly win the league, and now they wake up and go, "Oh, we should spend money." Like, it feels a bit strange to me. It feels like something must have changed that maybe we're not seeing, other than them winning the league.
Well, it's funny that you say that about the Liverpool fans before I get on to why they've done it. They said they didn't spend anything last year, but they'll still talk about City, even though they spent They only bought one player for money last summer as well. It's very fickle in terms of if my club do it, it's okay, it's above board. If someone else does it, it's not. But in terms of why, is because of the squad, really. If you look at that squad, who are their main players? It's Salah, Van Dijk, Allison. Now, all of them aren't in their they aren't 20s, early sort of in their career. They're coming towards the end. We didn't think like Salah nearly left in this summer. Van Dijk's contract was ending. It's sort of, you've got to think of the future. You can't just rely on these players to keep going because Salah's performance last season was unbelievable. You can't just go, yeah, he's going to do it again, because he probably will get a lot of goals, don't get me wrong, but maybe not up to the level that he did this season. Then you've had, so that's where I think they needed an attacker. Darwin Núñez hasn't worked out. Big money signing hasn't worked out, but he's got suitors who want to buy him. I don't know why. For the money, you can definitely get better players out there, but that's on the club who buys them, possibly Saudi, someone like that. They'll bring in money for him. Then you've got Trent, who's left. You needed a right back. They needed a right back. They found one, I think, for quite cheap with Frimpong. I don't think it was that expensive, really. But they also wanted to make a statement signing, I think, which is going to be Salah's the sort of, the key statement player. Wirtz is going to be. And the whole point of Wirtz is he's not a signing for 3 or 4 years. He's a signing for, you're looking 8 to 10 years. That's really, unless they get a huge offering for a transfer fee. I don't see Liverpool selling any other reason than, say, like someone stupid went, here's 400 million, kind of sort of made up sort of terms in that. So I think it's a freshness of the squad, because now you've got to remember this is now Slot's squad, not Klopp's squad. Because the last season, Slot did very, very well, don't get me wrong, you win in the league, you've done a great job, but he's done it with Klopp's squad. Klopp's built that, not Slot. And now Slot's going, I want to put my stamp on Liverpool. This is the players I want to bring in. And I think that's the reason why it's happening now. In the first summer, I think it was Slot learning about Liverpool, what they wanted, what he didn't want. And then I think the Trent one's forced his hand in a bit, but the rest of them, it's going, I'm putting my stamp on what I want from my team going forward.
I think a lot of it as well is like I said just a minute ago, is that long-term investment aspect. Liverpool had to do this eventually. Okay, if you look at the squad, they have a lot of players that have been there, 7, 8 years. Van Dijk, Salah, Alisson, Joe Gomez is still there, Andy Robertson. They've got a lot of players that have been there quite a long time. And now, unfortunately, none of us get younger. We only get older. And these players are now, late 20s, wrong side of 30s. Maybe not so much for Alisson because he's a goalkeeper. But, Van Dijk's, was he 33, 34? Salah's 33. Robertson, I think, is about 31, 32. Joe Gomez feels like he's been around for a long, long time, but he's still pushing and he's had injury problems as well. And even Trent was 27, 28 at his peak, but you can't have them all go in one go. You have to rebuild properly. And I think, giving Salah and Van Dijk the new deals ties them over for another year or two. But now they replace it. Florian Wirtz is only 22. Jerome Frimpong is only 24. The new goalkeeper to be Alisson's understudy is about 25. He's got another, probably 15 years if he wants to as a goalkeeper. So they had to do this eventually and freshen this squad up. You can't. You see it a lot where teams that leave this dynasty, they eventually, they just don't replace them because they all got too old together. I'll probably argue that Brian Clough's Nottingham Forest fell victim to that back in the day. But yeah, they've refreshed and they've rejuvenated where they had to and at the right times. And it's big money, but let's be honest, it is going to pay off. It should pay off anyway.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think, to be honest, that it does make sense. I think the only thing that's a bit strange is them doing a record transfer fee and then a week later wanting to break it again. I think that's why there's been so much attention on this window from Liverpool. But as you said, if you do break it down, I know they've done it in one window, not two, but you divide that 294 million by two, and suddenly it doesn't seem that ridiculous. So it does make sense, as you said, because all their best players have, come into the tail end of their career. Um, let's just quickly talk on the signings. From my perspective, I think they are good signings in terms of player profiles. Kirkes, I've waxed lyrical about how good he is. I think that's an absolutely phenomenal signing. I think it's a brilliant price. I think Frimpong is a little bit. I'm not convinced. He could be good, but a bit of a risk, I'd say. But again, price isn't crazy. I think for me, the Wirtz one is the one I'm questioning. I know this is the game we live in. Like, this is the day and age we live in, where players with potential who are young, you've got to invest the big money. We've done it for Chelsea a couple of times already. It does feel very high though, and I'm not convinced. He looks unbelievable, Wirtz, make no mistake, but I feel like he's another Havertz who looks good in the German league, very skillful. But I'm not convinced at this stage he's going to be an absolute sensation. Let's put it that way. What do you guys think on the signing so far?
I'm a huge fan of Florian Wirtz. I've been following his career since his breakout in 2020, and his growth as a player. I've been very impressed. I think he is a real good player. But I do agree. I think sometimes attackers in the German league do come with a bit of maybe like a blemish on their record a little bit. Um, because I'd say they're probably playing against a lot of teams that aren't very good defensively. That's why the German league is often quite seen as quite exciting because they can't defend. But yeah, and I suppose we've also got to think about his injury. He had a huge injury, didn't he, in 2022, where he was out for 10 months. He's recovered absolutely fine because he helped them go and win the double and go unbeaten in the German league. But does that injury come back to haunt him eventually? I don't know. Is that something you never get over? It could very well be. And I think Liverpool, if he gets injured, it's a spot of bother. But he bounced back phenomenally, from this injury, appearing in 32, I think it was 49 times in all comps, 18 goals. You can't knock that. For a young lad to come back with that mentality is very impressive. So I think there's a lot of positives, but I'll always reserve my judgment on signings. I think we're too quick to jump and shout how amazing they are, but we're also too quick to jump and bin them very quickly as well. So I have faith in coaches more than anything else and how they'll get the best out of them.
Yeah, and you best believe at that price as well. Every touch, every breath he makes will be absolutely criticised. I will be there as well because the way Liverpool have criticised, from our perspective, the likes of Caicedo, obviously that was on a place of bitterness, but the way they have, criticised some of the £100 million signings, every game he doesn't have a goal and assist, he will be vilified. I can assure you that much.
However, the reason why I'm sort of against that is I think Liverpool have done it at the perfect timing. If they didn't renew Salah's contract, I would say Wirtz is under all the pressure he could possibly be on. But because Salah's still there, Salah will take a lot of the burden off him. Salah will get the goals, will get the assists. Maybe not as, like I said, maybe not as much as last year, but still will get that. And that will ease the pressure of Wirtz to bed in for a year, learn what the Premier League's about, learn learn about the team, the league, everything fitting in. And I think that works well when you've got the superstar already there. So sort of, I know it's not ending well, but with City with Grealish, he didn't have to come in and hit the ground running because we won the league with basically him playing a bit part in that first season. He then came into the second season and that was our treble season. Now it has gone badly after that, but the whole point was, he doesn't have to hit the ground running straight away, and that's what I think Liverpool have done well by getting him now rather than waiting a year, waiting for Salah's contract to be run up. So you've got a bit more money in terms of it overall, but then the pressure is just greatly on Wirtz, and if it doesn't work out, Liverpool will drop down the league. Whereas now, he's just seen as an addition to it. You've not weakened Liverpool, you've increased it. Whereas if you looked at sort of Salah going up here and Wirtz maybe here, then you drop it down if Salah left. So because he's there, I think actually it's the right timing for the signing. Now I think it's 116 million although Sky Sports and other newspapers want to, knock it down. If you've seen the if you've seen the tweet where they did only the English price and everyone was in euros, that about sums it up. But you've got to remember there's a lot of £100 player signings these days. They don't always work out. Now Jordan will say Caicedo is working out now, but for 100 million, what Grealish is going to get, what other players are going to get, until you win a Premier League or Champions League, they're not doing enough. If that makes sense, that is the bar for £100 million signings. And that's if you look around all the list, a lot of them are failures because they've not hit them heights. And people are saying Grealish's failure, despite winning those, because he's not hit the heights of what sort of Salah's getting in goals and assists, Haaland, other players, or even reaching that height, like getting a PFA Player of the Year. So this is where there's a lot of pressure, and it's not a £60 signing that can get 10 goals, 10 assists, and go, that's a decent season. For 100 million, you're expecting a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. And in terms of them adding, I guess the question is, are they going to increase this spending beyond Akite? The links have been linked with a few other players. Mark Gurhey has one, which would be again another 60, 70 million. Can we see this going beyond the 300 mil and them going even further?
Yes, well, definitely for the Guy one. I think that will happen, or a centre back will come in. Whether it's him or not is a different matter. But it then depends on who they sell. So Darwin Núñez going is kind of already replaced. It's whether they sell Diaz, because Bayern Munich are after him. They've had one bid rejected for, I believe it was around 70, 75 million euros. They want a lot of money for him. And if he goes, they've got the money to spend. And a name that's been thrown around constantly is Rodrigo. He could be that player. He wants to play on the left. That's where Diaz is. There is that sort of opportunity. So I definitely see Liverpool spending more money on a centre back, but anything more depends on outgoings. I think that's where I'd see it with Liverpool.
Yeah, I think Liverpool, the important thing for them is, yeah, they still need depth. I think there's a big concern at the moment where if a couple of players do get injured, who comes on to take that step up? I'm not saying that they're not got strength in depth, because they are blessed with a very talented squad, but Konate's obviously had injury problems. So who would they partner alongside Virgil van Dijk consistently? Mark Gee seems like a perfect option for them at this moment in time. But I also think Slot might dip into the Dutch market again. I think he trusts a lot of those players. I think Gertrude, who left Feyenoord, who he knows at Feyenoord, went to RB Leipzig. I think he'd be a good fit for them. Scalvini at Atalanta is also a possibility. Um, but I think they're still expected to spend. And of course, if they let Darwin Núñez go, who they're going to replace him there? Obviously Ekateke is the one, but I still think they need another striker or two, if Diaz goes as well. I think Cody Gakpo's done a great job. Personally, I expect if he's going to start. But Slot, it's a difficult one for me because Slot's very good at working with young players. He's very, very good. However, I feel sorry for some of the younger players, because are they ready to take the step up, number one? But two, how are they going to play now that players have come in? So obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold's gone. I thought Connor Bradley was going to take the natural step up, but then they've replaced him with Frimpong. So surely Connor Bradley might be looking at his options, or he might think, well, how am I going to develop? They've still got Calvin Ramsey, let's not forget. Maybe he'll try him at left back. Stefan Bacecic as well, the talented young midfielder. They've got talent there, and I think he will use them. However, can we argue they're there to step up? Because if Liverpool have an injury or two, I would be a little bit worried who's there to go. But I expect them to still do business. There's still players they'll likely move on, like who Jamie's mentioned. I also think, Chiesa might be sold for a quick buck or two. So yeah, it's an interesting one for them with where they are, because I still think there's room to improve.
Yeah, and I guess the final question and the final debate really is the way they've won the league with basically no signings in a manager's first season is pretty impressive, let's be honest. The fact they are now finally finding some money and finally investing, I know we know they've invested before. This kind of narrative that they don't spend money is a bit of a farce with the Alisson record, Van Dijk record, Klopp statements. I think there's a lot of Liverpool fan hypocrisy in there, which I think has personally been my main issue with this business. I have no problem spending, but it's the absolute hypocrisy of fans. But is this a team now we have to really step up and take even more seriously than we would have? And could we see them now in the next, like City have done, winning very, very consistently and kind of dominating the league for what, 5, 6 years? Can we see this Liverpool side doing the same now?
It's possible. I think Slot, the difference he had at Feyenoord is with Liverpool is at Liverpool he's not expected to sell his best players and continuously rebuild. Feyenoord he had to. I think he would have probably done a little bit more at Feyenoord, maybe a second league trophy or something like that. Um, it was an amazing achievement last season. I know we can put the asterisks and say, well, the whole league was pretty poor standard. But you still have to win your games. You still have to do it. That doesn't matter. And why should we take that trophy away from Liverpool? I think everyone would be saying it's a great job if Arsenal did it, if United did it, City did it. So as far as I'm concerned, we shouldn't be making exceptions. It's got the potential for the dynasty. I think they spend their money wisely, regardless of, you say that there's big statements. I think they spend it wisely. Personally, I can't really remember many flops from Liverpool, particularly under this ownership and particularly under Klopp. Um, it's got the potential. The thing they've done is they've invested now, which is smart because the rest of the league has invested. City have spent, Arsenal have spent, Chelsea have spent, Spurs have spent, United are trying to spend. They've brought two additions in, but we still expect them to keep going in the market. So it's only going to be more competitive for them. And you've got to stay above that. As we can see, if you fall behind them for like 2 seasons in a row, you tend to panic buy and mess everything up that you've made. So they've done it now. It's got the potential. However, this season's a big one for them to see where it goes. I think they'll win another cup, whether it's the FA Cup or the League Cup, obviously TBC. But they should win the Community Shield as well. But I think we're going to see something special. But this season will be a real big test for them because I think the league is more competitive than it ever has been.
In terms of sort of dominance, I think you've got to look at who their best players are, and they're the ones who won't be able to survive another 5 years, another 4 or 5 years. If you tell me Liverpool win the season next year, it's not going to surprise anyone. I think it was more of a surprise last year. They are a very good side. It's not so surprising. But to go sort of the 3, 4 years, or sort of you said about City's dominance, 6 in 8 years is very, very hard to do. And because I don't think their main players of Salah, Van Dijk being the massive two, that will lower their levels. And that's where I don't think they're going to have a dominance with the spending that everyone's doing. City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle, United will keep spending. It's very difficult to do it, to create a dominant period like that, and especially when I think they're going to lose two of their best players in 2, maybe 3 years. That's why I don't think they have the dominance. But like I said, if they win it next year, there's no surprise. I'm not surprised because they are a very, very good team, and I think they've improved their squad overall. I think they've got weaker at right back, but I think they've obviously improved in the attacking threat kind of thing. So yeah, so it's hard to define dominance, but I think just due to the Salah Van Dijk ages is why they won't get it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Because you again, for a team that's going to dominate, you look at players coming into their peak, and it feels like they're just beyond that peak potentially. And then you've got young players who are really going to have to step up in the matter of a couple of years. Because I think if we look at the league, and obviously, look, we'll do our Prem prediction to the league, but I think it's so competitive right now. And I actually would argue this is going to be one of the hardest years to predict who's going to win the league. Like, I could genuinely see a scenario where in the next 4 or 5 years, City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea, maybe even a Newcastle win the league. Like, I think it is that competitive. So I think for a team to dominate it now, I think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to see it again personally, but I could be wrong. But that is all we got time for. As always, Liverpool fans and neutral fans, let us know in the comments what you make of the summer spending. Do you think Liverpool could dominate for the next 5 years? But as always, like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill.